Good Tavach, everyone. We're going to review the Sichas from this afternoon. It was relatively a shorter Farbrengen. By 3:30 the Farbrengen was over, and there were the Sichas in the Farbrengen were also shorter Sichas. The Rebbe began the Farbrengen that today's Kriyas HaTorah is a conclusion of Sefer Shemos. In other words, today was a Shabbos Chazak, and we completed Sefer Shemos. And when we complete something, when there's an inyan of a siyum, it is an appropriate time to make a cheshb ha'nefesh, to make a proper calculation. And this really we find in many areas. We find it at the end of a year. The end of the year is always a proper time. That's as we have it. The end of the year, we know it's Elul and it's Rosh Hashanah. All of that comes at the end of the year when we make a proper calculation. What have we accomplished during the year and so forth. And in a smaller scale, it's also after every month. After every month, we know there's Erev Rosh Chodesh. There are many communities that there's a concept that on Erev Rosh Chodesh there's a procedure of saying Yom Kippur Katan. Every Rosh Chodesh is called a small Yom Kippur. Why is this? Again, the same idea, because it's Erev Rosh Chodesh. We're about to enter a new month. We have finished an old month. And therefore, again, it's a proper time to evaluate what have we accomplished during this month, and what should be rectified for the future month. And the same concept we have on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, the Alter Rebbe brings out in Igeres HaTshuva that every Thursday night is a proper time to make a cheshbon nefesh from the entire week. What have we accomplished? How have we utilized the week, and so forth. And that's the inyan of Shabbos Bichlal. Shabbos, we know Chassidus teaches us that Shabbos has the same letters as Toshev, Tshuva. So Shabbos is again an appropriate time to look back and see what we accomplished during the previous week and how we can go do better for the following week. And in yet more detail, we have it on a daily basis. Comes at the end of the day. That's the whole meaning of Kriya Shema Shalamita. Before we say Biyotcha Afkid Ruchi, we return our soul to Rabbeinu Shalom before we retire at the end of the day. So it's also a proper time to make a sach hakol, to make a total. What have we accomplished during the day? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And so forth. So the same, going back when we complete a sefer in Torah, like this morning when we finished Sefer Shmos, and that is with Parshas Pekudei, it's appropriate to make a sach hakol, to make a total. Where are we standing? And the Rebbe says this idea is very suitable to the contents of the Chazarah. What do we read about in Parshas Pekudei? In Parshas Pekudei we read about Eile Pekudei HaMishkan, and we get an exact accounting what all the contributions which were given for the Mishkan, what they were all utilized for, the kesef, the zav, the nechoshes, the gold, the silver, the copper, exactly what it was used for, how much of it was utilized. So again, it's the same idea. What is the contents of the Chazarah? The contents of the Chazarah is also making a sach hakol, giving us a total, how all the contributions for the Mishkan were utilized. Our Rebbe is continuing. We find it even in Rashi. Rashi is quoting that there are three major things which the Yidden contributed for the Beis HaMikdash, and that was gold, silver, and copper. Brass, thank you. And this gold, silver, and brass, which is in Hebrew is zav, kesef, and nechoshes, this corresponds that there are three levels. There are three levels in Avodas Hashem. And actually, a person was given, the Rebbe is continuing, three general areas what he should work with. In Gemara, we find it in different expression. We recall in Gemara there's an expression of idias, Beinanis, and Ziburis. This is an expression in Gemara when the Gemara refers to a piece of land, to a field. Idias means the best. Beinanis is Meloshem Beinani, Meloshem medium quality field. And then there is what is called Ziburis. Ziburis means the worst. The worst quality of a piece of land is called Ziburis. And the same, in a relative way, it is related, the same concept. There is gold, there is silver, and there is brass. Gold is the best. silver is secondary. And the Choshes is something which is a further quality. Why do we say that all these areas have to be utilized and united, all of them together, be utilized in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And these are three madregas, which the Rebbe is going a little deeper and explained the Chassidus. These three levels relate to Barasa, Yetzarta, and Nafachta, which we say every day in davening and Walkai Neshama. And if we were to divide it in the Olam, the way it's explained in Chassidus, it relates to the Olam is Biyah, Bria, Yitzira, Asiyah. And at all times, a person has to know that all type of inyanim which he comes into contact with in this world, there are top quality inyanim, and there are medium quality inyanim, and there are low quality inyanim. And all of these inyanim have to be utilized for Avodas Hashem, and all of these inyanim have to be united. Even when we're standing in such a chashuv time, such a special time as we are in now. We're in the month of Adar, and Adar is a very special time. The mazel of Yidden is bari, is healthy, and the mazel of Yidden is takif, is strong in the month of Adar. So at the same time, we have to remember that what is the shleimus, the completeness in Avodas Hashem when we serve the Rebishter. The Rebbe is using the pasuk Chut HaMishulash Loi B'Meheira Yinotek. When a chut is a string that's tripled, Loi B'Meheira Yinotek will not rip so easy. The Mela, when we are involved in Avodas Hashem and we're utilizing all areas, we are utilizing Avodas Hashem, the best and the second to the best, and even what's in a much lower grade. And at the same time, all of this has to be utilized in Avodas Hashem, and utilized to such an extent as the pasuk begins at the beginning of this week's Sedre Eile. What means Eile? This is the count of the Mishkan. Eile Pekudei HaMishkan. What do we mean Eile when we're talking in Ruchnias? There's an expression which the Rebbe, Zeh, in Hebrew, when you want to pinpoint at something, Mare Be'etzboi, he points with his hand, V'oimer Zeh, he says, this is it. Memele Eile, it's not something, we're not talking about anything hidden, we're talking about something which can be pinpointed at, and can be seen and proven and shown, that Avodah was utilized in all of these areas which we're talking about. Here the Rebbe is using this word Eile, and he's verbinding it with a similar expression. We have the same word Eile in last week's Seder. Last week's Seder, where the pasuk uses the expression Vayakhel Moshe, that Moshe congregated all of Klal Yisrael, and he's telling Yidden about Shabbos first, and then after telling them about Shabbos, he goes on to tell them in detail about the Mishkan. So there the pasuk also uses the expression Eile Hadvarim. What's the pshat Eile? These are the things which Hashem said to do. So we know regarding Shabbos that there are 39 malachas. There are 39 various types of work which we are prohibited to do on Shabbos. Where do we derive these 39 malachas from? So Chazal tell us that these malachas which were done in the Mishkan, what had to be done in the Mishkan to erect the Mishkan, we are prohibited to do on Shabbos. Where does this number 39 come from? So Chazal tell us as follows. Eile, the numeric value of the word Eile, is 36. Aleph is 1, Lamet is 30, and Hey is 5. If we are to take 36 plus the 3 letters of Eile, every letter in Eile is also 1, it's 1 letter. So it gives us a total of 39. And this is the 39 malachas which we're not allowed to do on Shabbos. When the Gemara uses the expression regarding the 39 malachas which we're not allowed to do on Shabbos, the Gemara uses the expression Arboim Chosar Achas. There are 40 less 1. What's the pshat 40 less 1? The Rebbe is teaching. What it means is, a person always has to know that what he has to aim towards is to reveal the Achas, the one. In other words, to reveal the Rebishter, the one, the Echad, how the Echad is in this world. And that's the pshat. This comes at the end of Chumash Pekudei, at the end of Chumash Mois. What does Chumash Mois begin with? Ve'ela b'nei Yisrael haboyim Mitzrayim. And this is what we have to know when we are entering Golus. When Yidden are in Golus, that's what Mitzrayim is. So that when we're coming into Golus, we have to remember that what is the Avodah in Golus? The Avodah in Golus is that we have to reveal the Echad. Arboim Chazarah. And when we accomplish this, when this is accomplished, then the whole union of Mishkan, what's the whole union of Mishkan? The whole union of Mishkan is the revelation of Gettelkeit. And this is what we're talking about here at the end of Chumash Ma'is. This is what we're learning about in Parshas Pekudei. And that happened the first day in Nisan. The first day in Nisan, that is when the Mishkan was erected. So the same thing, like Rashi is telling us here, on the words Eile Pekudei HaMishkan. So Rashi says it's mentioned Mishkan twice in the pasuk. Eile Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan HaEdus. Rashi says this is a reminder on the two Mishkanos, meaning on the two Batei Mikdash, which were taken as a mashkin. What is a mashkin? Mashkin is when one gives somebody else a loan, a collateral. That's a mashkin. So the same thing, the Rebishter took away the Mishkanos from us. He took them away as a collateral because we weren't acting properly. We weren't as it should be. So a Mishkan the Mishkan will be returned to us, and the halacha is, says the Rebbe, that when one takes an item for a collateral, and when he's returning it, he has to return it complete, without any damages. Memela, the Rebishter took the Mishkan from us, so the Rebishter has to return the Mishkan in its entirety, and give us the Beis HaMikdash. Give us the Beis HaMikdash and take us out of Golus. And through the Avodah, revealing the Echad, Avoyim Chazarah. In the meantime, the Achas is missing. But what is the Avodah V'Yid? The Avodah V'Yid is he's revealing the Echad in Welt. And by revealing the Echad in Welt, we will come to what happened in the first of Nisan. Just like then, what happened in the first of Nisan, the Mishkan was erected. The Rebishter will give us back the Mashkain. He will give us back the items he has taken in collateral, and will give us back the Mishkan. I'm talking on this Rashi, where Rashi is stressing the fact Eile Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan HaEdus, and the pasuk uses a double expression for Mishkan. And Rashi says, why is the pasuk using a double expression for Mishkan? Because it's an indication on the two Mishkans. What do we mean by Mishkans? Batei Mikdash. It's an indication on the two Batei Mikdash, which the Rebishter shenismashken, which the Rebishter has taken in collateral by destroying the Batei Mikdash, alav v'nesein shel Yisrael, on the sins of Eden. So the Rebbe says there's a very obvious question here which requires to be answered. What are we learning about? We are learning about the erection of the Mishkan. Which Mishkan? Not the Beis HaMikdash. Not the Beis HaMikdash which was built by David, prepared by David and built by Shlomo, or neither the second Beis HaMikdash which was built later. We are learning here about the Mishkan as such, the Mishkan she'asa Moshe, the Mishkan that Moshe made. So when Rashi is telling Pshat about the Mishkan, that the double expression Mishkan is an indication on the two Batei Mikdash which the Rebishter has taken away. So Rashi is talking about the Batei Mikdash and ignoring the Mishkan, which the whole contents of this Seder is about Mishkan. Furthermore, what is the contents of the Seder? The contents of the Seder is giving an accounting how everything was utilized for the Mishkan. So what are we going to say? That perhaps Rashi may also is referring to the two Batei Mikdash because there were items which were left over and carried over from the Mishkan into the Beis HaMikdash. But this is not what the Seder here is talking about. The Seder here is not giving an accounting on how the funds for the Beis HaMikdash were dispersed. This is not what the Seder is talking about. The Seder here is giving an accounting on the Mishkan. So if we're talking primarily about the Mishkan, true, there's an expression here twice Mishkan, which is an indication on the two Batei Mikdash, as Rashi says. So Rashi is saying it's an indication on the two Batei Mikdash, and he's ignoring Mishkan she'asa Moshe, which this is the accountants of what we're talking about. This is the whole Seder, and whatever we're discussing is only about giving an accounting and giving a cheshbon on the Mishkan, and not on the Beis HaMikdash, which was built in later years. The Rebbe left this question unanswered and concluded, that through our Aveda, and as we discussed earlier, in Zahav and Kesef and in Necheshes. And everybody will realize that this Zahav and Kesef and Necheshes will be used for their own Avodah and Avodas Hashem, not only for somebody else's, but really to feel that everyone has to use this in his own Avodah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This will lead to the conclusion of the Sedra. What does the Sedra conclude? Anan Hashem al Mishkan, that the cloud has filled on the Mishkan, is on the Mishkan. Ukvoid Hashem, as the pasuk says earlier, Ukvoid Hashem Molayas HaMishkan, has filled the Mishkan, and when we will be able to have such a great revelation of Getlichkeit, that we feel that Ukvoid Hashem Molayas HaMishkan, that will be with the rebuilding of the third Beis HaMikdash. The Rebbe is continuing, just like there is a lesson which we derive from the beginning of the Sedra, there is also a Musar which we can take from the end of the Sedra, as something which is very obvious in the last Rashi, which is the Siyum, the final Rashi in this Chumash, in the Chumash of Shmos. And though primarily Rashi's inyan is Pshuta Shel Mikra, Rashi's inyan is to tell us Pshat, but nonetheless there are things which are extremely obvious that this is a Hayrah, this is a lesson in Avodas Hashem, which everybody could utilize. Pasuk concludes the last words in Shmos, in Pashas Pekudei and Sefer Shmos, about the cloud which was on the Mishkan, and the fire, Ke'anan Hashem ala Mishkan yoimam, ve'eish and a fire tia laila boy, and this was la'enei kol beis Yisrael, b'chol ma'aseyim, in all their journeys and in all the trips which the Yidden took. What does Rashi say? Middle of the Rashi, the last Rashi, Rashi says as follows: Mokim chani yoson afhu masa. Rashi says, tremendous hayra, tremendous musa. The Rebbe kept on using the expression Rashi is saying here, that even when Yidden are stopping, Mokim chani yoson, we're talking about Yidden. Mokim chani yoson. There's something special which the Rebbe has instituted in Yidden. Yidden is Yir L'chol Avatcha Ve'en L'Zorah Mitach. Yidden and only Yidden. That even when they are stopping, and when they are resting, and when they are camping, when they are not traveling, it's also called traveling. Was meint das? Because even when a Yid rests, the Rebbe is referring to the Rambam. The Rambam tells us how many hours a person is supposed to sleep. Whether somebody is sleeping the amount of hours, the Rambam tells us, we sleep less the amount of those hours. So that's an meaning of rest. So a Yid has to know that his rest is also so that he can have a higher journey, so that he can travel weiter. Apparently, the Yidden are at their last station in the Mishkan, in the Midbar, and it's the last time they're taking a rest in the Midbar. So how can we say that the last rest in the Midbar is also called a Masa, is also called a journey, also going weiter? It's the last stop in the Midbar. Was weiter? What are we heading for now? No. A Yid has to know how high he achieved. He's already the last stop in the Midbar. So he should know that from Midbar, he's going into Eretz Yisrael. But any type of rest, even an inyan of rest which a Yid is taking, he always has to know that this rest is so that he should be able to come to a yet higher madrega. One has reached tremendous madregas. We know Sidus explains, there's an inyan of Nun Shari Bina, there are 50 gates of Bina. A person has reached to Memtes Shari Bina, has reached to the 49. Then we say that it's the 50th level of Bina. It's very hard to reach. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't have reached to that. When did Moshe Rabbeinu reach that? When he passed away. Moshe Rabbeinu passed away on Har Nevoi, on Mount Nevoi. So it's explained, what's the title? Mount Nevoi, Nun Boy. This is when he has reached to this highest level of the Nun Shari Bina. So here we are saying, given a person that can reach to Nun Shari Bina, he too has to know that there's something after that. In other words, Avodas Hashem never stops. Was?
I would say a person can't reach Nun Shari Bina. Only Mem Test and the Abish gives him that if he's
perhaps, I don't want to say Pshatim of my own, but perhaps after it was already achieved by Moshe Rabbeinu, there's always, Chassidus always says that once there was a Psichas Hatzina, maybe can reach to that. And then again, we come to what's discussed in the end of the Seder, that Vanan Hashem, the cloud, Moles HaMishkan, fills up the Mishkan, Kvoid Hashem, Kvoid Hashem, Kishachin Olav HaOnon, Kvoid Hashem Moles HaMishkan. And this leads into the beginning of the next Seder. What's the next Seder? Vayikra Hashem al Moshe. That's how we begin the next Sefer. So what do we find at the beginning of Vayikra? At the beginning of Vayikra we find a small aleph. So what's the small aleph? An aleph ze'ira. In Aramaic it's zo'ir, ze'ir, zayin, ayin, yud reish. It's called small. As of Pshat we have a small aleph, so that's the inyan of bittul. Being that Moshe Rabbeinu was in the madrege of Daka v'shval ruach, he was in the madrege of anivis, shiflus, in his own eyes, and that is why he was zeichem. That is why he was fortunate that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should refer to him and Vayikra al Moshe. The Rebbe is continuing that the same is to every Yid. Every Yid has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu within him. And the Rebbe turns to every Yid, and the Rebbe calls every Yid. Then, amongst us, there are those that do not feel that the Rebbe is calling to us, but nonetheless the Rebbe is calling. As there are many famous Hasidic stories that there were people that had Gilui Eliyahu, they saw Eliyahu Navi, and at the time that they saw Eliyahu Navi, they did not know that they are seeing Eliyahu Navi, and this they found out later. The Rebbe says, not only do we find this in Hasidic stories, we find similar stories from Chazal and Medrash and in Gemara, also that there were tremendous Giluyim, tremendous revelations, and the person didn't even feel it until later. And later he found out what type of a tremendous revelation he had before. Again, every Yid is a keli, every Yid is a vessel for this inyan of Vayikra al Moshe. The Rebbe says in Hilchos Shabbos we find regarding carrying, there are details that we do not really look at the keli. We look at what is in the keli. I'm not getting involved in the details in Hilchos Shabbos. The same thing the Rebbe is bringing out the spiritual, the moral from it, spiritual orah, that every Yid, there are various categories in Yidden. There are those categories of Zahav, there's gold, and there's silver, and there's Nechoshes. But even the Nechoshes Yid, when this Nechoshes Yid is full of Anan Hashem, when this Nechoshes Yid is full of serving the Rebbe, this leads to the Pekudei Hashem, which we're talking about in this week's Seder, that the Rebbe is counting, and this will lead to the 10th count, which the Rebbe will count Yidden. We find in Chumash, the Rebbe counted Yidden many times, but it's brought in Chazal. When will be the 10th? Number 10 shows on an inyan of shleimus, of a certain level of completeness. When will that be? That will be when Mashiach will come. And then the Rebbe will take us, count us, and take us out of Golus, and then we will be able to bring Karbanis, which this is what Sefer Vayikra is all about. It's the Sefer of Karbanis. Now, talking on Sefer Vayikra, the next Sikha is bringing out that a Sefer Vayikra, Rashi tells us that the Rebbe, when the Rebbe was teaching Yidden, the Rebbe gave a hafsaka. There was a break in between. And what were the breaks for? Liten revach le Moshe lehizboine bein parsha la parsha. When the Rebbe was teaching Moshe Rabbeinu, the Rebbe gave Moshe Rabbeinu a break between one parsha and the other. Why? So that Moshe Rabbeinu should be able to understand what the Rebbe is telling him. So he gave him an opportunity, he gave him a break, a little recess, so that Moshe Rabbeinu should be able to understand what the Rebbe is talking about. Rashi goes on, if this is how the Rebbe did to Moshe, kal v'chaymer lehedyet haloymid min ahedyet. How much more so one simple person learns from another simple person, so definitely he has to teach him in a way to give him a time that he should, a pause, a break between one inyan and another, and not like to throw it at him that he shouldn't be able to follow, that he shouldn't be able to understand what he's teaching him. Rabbi says here we have a tremendous hayra how we are to teach Torah to another Yid. But when we teach Torah to somebody else, simply has to be in a way that the person who we are teaching to, a person who is learning Torah, has to make sure that he's understanding the Torah, what he's learning. Torah is given pasha that we should understand. Rabbi says there was a big masculine chassidus, somebody who a very, very deep understanding in chassidus, And when he used to come to something very deep in Chassidus, and he really didn't understand what the Maimon was saying, he used to say in great excitement, he would say, Heilige Oisius, holy letters, Heilige Oisius, kein ein Wort nicht verstandig. Holy letters, but nothing is understood. Rebbe says, when we learn Torah, this is not, it's like a Heilige Oisius, but Heilige Oisius, Rebbe says, before Matan Torah. After the Rebbe gave Yidden the Torah, it's taka holy, but at the same time, the Rebbe wants we should understand. And not the pshat that we're going to sit back and say a kapitel Tilim. And that will satisfy our understanding in Torah. It's not it. Rebbe says when teachers teach and educators relate to others, their teaching has to be in such a way that it should be kishulchan oruch, that the teaching, the lessons that are being taught to other people should be just like a set table. Because we find by Mishpatim, we find Ve'ela Mishpatim Ashatasim Lifneim, so Rashi there uses the expression Kishulchan Aruch, like a set table. What's the pshat like a set table? When something is given like a set table, it makes it much easier on the person who you are teaching to that he should understand it better. And this is simple what we find in Mishnah. Mishnah tells us, Yagaita u'matzasa. What's the pshat Yagaita u'matzasa? You have invested, you have put in hard labor, that's the touch Yagaita. Then u'matzasa, then you find. Rabbi's teaching, Rabbi mentioned it many times already. Previous occasions, every expression by Chachamim is accurate. Chachamim say, Yagata, you have put in toil, you have worked hard, and the conclusion should have been Yagaita v'yadata. Yagaita v'lamarita, right? But that's not what the Mishnah says. Mishnah says Yagaita u'matzasa, you will find. What's the pshat find? When you find something, it comes by surprise. You don't invest effort to find something in the street. You find it, you're lucky you find something. The Metziyah, the Gemara uses the expression, the Metziyah comes behesach hadas, by surprise. The same says the Rebbe is as far as learning. Yogaita, you will put in effort. When you will put in effort, but you have to put in the effort. This is a condition. Otherwise it doesn't come. Without effort it doesn't come. It's not like you find something in the street, totally behesach hadas. Prior to the matzasa, there is need for yogaita. Yogaita means you put in effort. When you will put in the effort, the results will be far above the effort you have put in. That's why the expression is a matzasa. You will have results, much bigger results, much greater results than in proportion to the effort that you have invested. But at the same time, you have to remember, there's a prerequisite for the umatzasa, yagata. You have to have it, and that's how we understand learning. And this inyan of learning, of understanding what we're learning, this is not only now, even la'asad love. La'asad love, we are told that then Torah will be taught in a format of vision, higher level of learning than we have now. Rabbi says even when we're talking about a level of vision, there's also a need to be able to see things clearly. And in order to see things clearly, we have to understand them very well. And when we understand, that is when we have a proper vision. So again, what the Rebbe was really stressing is Pasha, that when we are learning Torah, to make sure that we understand what we are learning. Torah is given to understand. And the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is that we have to understand what we are learning. And this is what the Rebbe is demanding, Pasha, to learn and to understand what we are learning. Rebbe concluded the Farbrengen. We're again reminding everybody that that we are in the days before Purim. And in the days before Purim, it's the appropriate time to remind everybody about all the inyanim of Purim, to first of all to see to it that everybody has the means to be able to celebrate a proper Purim, and the inyanim that come with it, Mishloach Manes, Matanos Lavyanim, and these are Bechlal days that remind on the Indian of Tzedakah, because this is the primary union of Purim, is the union of giving Tzedakah. Concluded, we say in Slichas, Merubim tzorchei amcha, the needs of your nation are many, v'datum k'tzara, and their mind is a short one. So there's a teich from the Friedeke Rebbe. Why take is merubim tzorchei amcha? Why is it that we have that many needs, we need so many things? Because we have a short mind, because of daitam k'tzorah. If our mind would have been a much broader one, then we wouldn't have needed that many things. We wouldn't have needed, in other words, all the gashmistik and yonim would not have been bothering us if we would have had a deya rechava, if we would have had a broader mind. Says the Rebbe, but however, being that the Rebbe shtad bashafen, the Rebbe created us with the deya k'tzorah, so let the Rebbe give us whatever we need, and let it be that all the merubim tzorchei amcha, all the many things that we need, the Rebbe should give. Here the Rebbe also reminded that we should learn the drushim, the mamorim of Purim, the inyanim echsidus of Purim, and at the same time also learn the halachas that relate to Purim, even though the halachas in Shulchan Aruch are not many. There are not many halachas that are negeya. In other words, it's quantity of halachas. It's not a lot, but to remember how the halachas of Purim end. The last words in the halachas of Purim and Orach Chaim is v'toiv leiv mishta tamid. That a toiv leiv, a good-hearted person, mishta tamid, is always enjoying a feast. So this inyan of mishta tamid, inyan of feast, we should bring this down into the entire year, not only for Purim, but bring it into the entire year. The Rebbe concluded, may it be mismach geula legeula. It's an expression in Gemara. Gemara says that we celebrate Purim in the second Adar. Why? To bring close one Yontiv of Geula to another Geula. The second Geula is in Pesach. So that is why we celebrate Purim in the second Adar, to bring close two celebrations of Geula. One Purim and one Pesach. So Rebbe is saying, let us have mismach gula legiula, that by Mashiach coming before Purim, that will be one inyan of gula, and then we will have Purim, which will be another inyan of gula. So we will celebrate two inyanim of geula by Mashiach coming right now, even before Purim.
Do people attempting to answer this question?
He leaves them unanswered. The Rebbe has an expression, he didn't use it today, but there's an expression, Tein lachacham v'yech kamoi. Leave it up to the wise and they will become yet wiser.